Once you're a registered member of DPA, it takes about 6,000 to be registered.
Okay.
You are going to have a lawyer for you whenever you are facing jeopardy. What I mean by jeopardy is whenever the state is against you and you are likely to lose your liberty and the police are arresting and detaining you, today we will be there. We have a case today in Abia State, murder case. We are stepping in there because the person became a member. We are in many places, in Port Harcourt, in other places. And what we're trying to do is, we're trying to eliminate the dichotomy that has existed in Nigerian legal system. Because if you look at it realistically, Nigerian legal system has been divided into two major parts: the law for the rich and the law for the poor.
Exactly.
And the law for the rich is very kind and nice, and that's why the rich people, they never stay long in prison. They get arrested.
They get arrested
Yeah,
at all.
they get arrested in 2 days' time. They're out. The poor man gets arrested. He's denied bail, and he's languishing in prison for 4 years before the judge ever gets to ask the question whether he is guilty or not. So we don't want to do that. So a poor person today, if you're a member of DPA and they catch you, we'll be at the police station before they get there. We will be there in court. We're going to give you the same kind of legal representation as the rich would have. So we are breaching that dichotomy. We are bringing that equity in the field of access to justice. Because as I keep telling people wherever I go, we can look at the Constitution and talk about the rights in the Constitution. We can talk about all the rights we have in the law, books, but unless you have access to court system, unless you're able to get into that court and have a judge listen to you and present argument consistent with the law, all you have written in the book about your right, meaningless, really. So DPA's strongest point is on the issue of access to justice.
And that is wonderful, actually, because I don't think anyone has actually thought about it in this sphere, in this way. But I'm sure you're facing some challenges.
Oh, tremendous challenges, of course. Yes. First and foremost, if you come into Nigeria, and by the way, the human rights struggle had always been part of Nigerian history. Whether we are talking about the resistance against colonial encroachment upon the native territories, okay, like the history of colonialism, or whether you are talking about the struggle for independence, or whether you are talking about the struggle against military rule, or whether you are talking about recent developments in civil rights issues, human rights had always been a critical part of Nigerian history or truth. What we are trying to do in DPA that is new is changing the method by which we do it. We are creating a movement that has some kind of a mutuality element in it. That you are involving a whole group of people coming together to assist themselves, like what you may call an insurance program, but not quite an insurance program. This is why people pay 6,000 naira to belong to DPA. And when they get into trouble, DPA is going to provide them legal services worth 600,000. So how it works essentially is that, let's say 20,000 people contribute 6,000 each. It creates a pool of money. So, but since the 20,000 people will not get into trouble,
at the same time,
only about 10% of them will get into trouble. So the money contributed by the 20,000 will be sufficient to provide quality.
That is still an insurance principle.
Yeah, well, it is an insurance principle, really. But what the great thing here is that you have every little person helping every little person.
Yes.
That's the whole way, because the money is not coming from the government. It's the people coming in together. He said, listen, I may not get arrested this year, really, but I'm still going to put this 6,000 in case my neighbor gets arrested.
Oh, yes.
So you are supporting your neighbor, and your neighbor supports you. This is essentially a movement that is inspired from the point of view of the little people. Little people are coming together to prove strength and to be able to achieve results that would have been otherwise impossible.
Exactly. You know, when I first saw that move, and you had to ask people to contribute towards this cause, I was like, this is wonderful. I mean, even if it was more than 6,000, even if it was 10,000, I'm sure I would have made payment. I've paid, but, you know, I had some challenges with the website. I don't know if that has been fixed.
Oh, yes. It has been a problem for us.
Yes.
But we are making progress. We've been able to establish a portal. a portal, and people are using the portal. The portal comes with complaints because it's not as user-friendly as we wanted.
Yes.
So we reordered the IT people to come back and get back to these things, make it so easy. I said to them, make it so easy that even an illiterate can use it.
Exactly.
So they're working on it. It's going to continue to be work in progress. But if I may say this, because you asked me a while ago about the challenges I face, fighting for human rights anywhere in the world is going to come with some kind of resistance. Because essentially, at any point in time, it is another human being that is abusing the right of a human being. So when you try to fight for the right of the abused person, you're going to encounter resistance from the abusers. We've seen this. When I made the first move of going after the police and saying, no, 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 you can't extort money, you can't, you know, I made a whole lot of things, and even the IG of police called me and said, hey, what's wrong with you? What do you have against the police?
Exactly.
I said, I have nothing against you guys, but stop taking money from people in the street. So everybody liked it. All the Nigerian men liked it. But then I discovered another aspect of injustice in Nigeria, or abuse in Nigeria, which is domestic violence.
Yeah.
I was shocked to know that almost 90% of Nigerian men beat their wives, or abuse their wives in some capacity or the other. So I began to speak against it. And I knew that these abuses are rooted in something more serious, like the belief in customs, the belief in the Bible, and all those things. So we began to discuss those things.
Yes, definitely. We'll get to that. Still on DPA, I noticed there were some breakaway groups. You know, there is no way you're going to come up with a fantastic idea like that and nobody wants to copy. Of course, people want to step in. They want to, you know, make the idea their own. So how do you handle that?
I would be very happy, as I said. I would really be happy if somebody can come up and take the idea from me. Because the DPA project has been eating so deeply into my own personal time, into my time for my children. My children have been really left unattended to by me, you know, because of my commitment to DPA. And I have young children. My son is 19, my daughter is 16. These kids want to talk to me, and when I talk to my son, I feel some gap, and this is because of DPA. Yeah. So if somebody can come in and take up DPA, I would love it. But what happened in recent time, which was described as a breakaway, was I had hired a gentleman who was working in my law firm, working for me. When I got detained by the police in Abuja in July, I instructed him to take over and speak to the people on my behalf.
Okay.
So that catapulted him into an extraordinary limelight. He became so important. People were calling him from all over the world. So, you know, so it began to appear to him that he could do the DPA thing. So at some point, I had to make a decision because of difficulties, you know, involving him, the firm, and the PA. I removed him from DPA. It was agreed that I should remove him for the time being to resolve an issue. Okay. And then it didn't go down well with him.
You said it was agreed. Who agreed?
Okay, this is essentially what happened. Because in DPA, with our work the way it is, you see a lot of people from all over the world calling us for help, calling us with questions. So DPA, that position comes with tremendous level of responsibility.
Yes, it does.
You must understand that people are now looking up to you for so much. People even call me to interpret their dreams in the night.
Oh my goodness!
Just to tell you the level of confidence and trust. They believe we could do everything. So when you have that sort of thing, you know, you have to be extremely responsible. You have to understand people are going to trust you. You must not advise them in a way that causes them to lose money. And you must not take advantage of them. This is a very delicate issue. So in that particular case, this young lawyer working for me and apparently deputizing for me in DPA got involved in representing a woman. One woman from America, and the woman paid him 2 million naira, and it wasn't well utilized. I didn't know about this. Then the lady called me and said, I gave my money to some man, and he did nothing with it. I said, I wasn't aware of it, but I will speak to him. I asked him, he confirmed he got the money. That was against our principle in DPA. This was a clear case of taking an advantage of someone. So I tried to explain to the lady that this was not a DPA matter. She said no, she trusted him because he was active in DPA. So
Yeah,
I had
that's
to
another thing.
remove
It's
him.
possible she contracted him as a person.
Well, I looked into the circumstances. I was satisfied that the money was not utilized for her work. That's the whole issue. Contracting him as a person is not a problem. Indeed, as you know, in that case, we even could confirm that that lawyer forged a letter from the Ministry of Justice. So it was something far more serious.
Oh,
Exactly. That lawyer forged a letter because this woman was in America. She had a problem in Nigeria. She needed a lawyer. She came to me. I told her what to do. She thought that the standards I set was wrong, was too stringent.
Yeah.
She went behind and dealt with him. She contributed to her predicament.
Oh,
but
I
her own folly is not enough to excuse the conduct of a counsel. So he took the money, promised to do things he couldn't do, and to give the woman the impression he was making progress, he forged the letter from Minister of Justice. When I saw this, it was extreme. I had to act. So first and foremost, I had to save DPA.
oh,
So I got to establish that it wasn't DPA business, it wasn't DPA modus operandi. So the best way to do it was to remove him from DPA.
I see.
So I called him and said, I'm going to keep you out of DPA until you sort this out.
All right.
He said, okay. I took him out of DPA.
Okay.
He changed his mind. He thought he had sufficient number of following to be able to set up his own thing. So he set up his own thing, and I wish him well.
Oh, that's good. All right. Oh, we'll have to take a short break now. And when we come back, we're going to have his views on domestic violence. Don't go away. Hello and welcome back. We're with Barrister Emeka Ugwuonye, and it's been quite enlightening. We've been talking about due process advocates and, of course, everything else as it relates to the controversial individual. All right, sir, please, we would like to have your views. You touched a little on the issue of domestic violence. I know you're quite passionate about that whole aspect of the law. Yeah, so tell us about it. What exactly is going on? Because it seems that it's something that happens quite frequently.
Yes, there is so much to say about the state of the family in Nigeria. I think it's something I have given quite some attention to. I have tried to tackle it from a philosophical point of view. That's being able to try to understand this phenomenon. What is happening to the families? Why are the men beating their wives? Why are we encountering so much violence in the family? Then it goes back to the fact that the family has changed. Marriages have changed from what it used to be a few decades ago. People are no longer living in the villages where everybody knows everybody, knows everybody's parents. We are now living in cities where you meet strangers and marry strangers.
Okay.
And then, so you look at the changes in the family as one source of explanation what's going on. Then you ask yourself, do we have adequate legal framework in Nigeria to prevent domestic violence? The answer is no. A shocking no. We don't have that. There is actually no law in Nigeria called domestic violence per se. What we have in Nigeria is, with the exception of Lagos, if a man beats his wife, Nigerian law is going to treat it as an assault the same way it would be if the man had fought another man in the street.
Okay.
So, but you can see immediately that the situation is different, absolutely different.
Okay.
So the law dealing with assault generally is not adequate to deal with domestic violence.
Okay.
Because in domestic violence, the incident is occurring in the woman's bedroom. She has nowhere to go to. You see, if you get attacked in the street, even your relatives will call you and say, come home.
Yes.
Get out of that place and come home.
Yes.
There is a general belief that if you get home, that your trouble is over. Just home is sanctuary. Home is where people take refuge.
Yes.
But domestic violence is such that you have no refuge. It's happening in the dead of the night in your bedroom. Nowhere to run to. And it's coming from the person you would have expected to protect and defend you against all evil, all dangers. So we're supposed to have, as we do have in other parts of the world that are more advanced, we're supposed to have in Nigeria laws that are specifically targeted to deal with the unique scenarios of domestic violence.
Okay.
So such laws supposed to be fast, the remedy. Such laws supposed to make it possible for the law enforcement agencies to get into the scene and remove that dangerous situation, which is take the man out, take the woman out. Whoever it is that caused that violence is out immediately.
Okay, let me ask, because you say whoever it is that caused the violence. Now, no one is in support of domestic violence, but sometimes it could have come about as a result of, you know, harsh words. Like, I'm talking now from the woman's point of view. Some women don't know how to talk. And, you know, we are living in a society where the man actually expects respect, you know, from the woman. So some men do not actually, they have not grasped that concept of equality when it comes to marriage. So don't you think for these climes there should be a slightly different approach?
Well, yes, there's always going to be. It's like a tailor making your suit. The sizes should depend on the sizes of the body. But a Nigerian situation is different. But there is something we must be very, very careful about. There is a tendency to say that, oh, verbal abuse by women is equivalent of domestic violence or another form of domestic violence. Now, it is absolutely necessary that we don't compare those. You see, domestic violence is not just because somebody is angry against another person. No, domestic violence is because something is occurring that could result in homicide. Okay. So no amount of verbal abuse by your wife is going to knock down your teeth. No amount of verbal abuse from your wife is going to cause you to hit your head on the wall and die. So there are ways to deal with verbal abuse. And obviously, a woman who abuses her husband verbally is definitely doing something absolutely unacceptable. And there is law for that, really.
There is?
Certainly, because psychological or psychological abuse is one of the grounds for divorce. Oh. Certainly. If you go to the courts in Nigeria today, they ask you, what is your ground for divorce? You can say, my wife is excessively vicious in the kind of things she says to me. She calls me this, she calls me that. I can't live with such a person. The judge is going to accept that as a valid ground for divorce. So let us understand that even though verbal abuse could be very hurtful and painful to those that are directed against, we must not consider them equivalent of domestic violence. Because if we do, the consequence is very dangerous. Because what is going to happen is a man is going to push his wife down the stairway, she dies, and when you ask him what happened, he said, I was acting in self-defense. She first attacked me with her mouth. So I attacked her with my hands in defense. So we don't want to subscribe to that at all. And by the way, I must say this. Some men are very vicious verbally. Some men will sit down and call their wives, you fat, ugly thing. How did I marry a like you idiot, good for nothing things, abuse the woman, and the woman goes into depression. Yeah. Women are more likely to get depressed out of psychological touch and torment from their husbands than men are. We got to get this right. Yeah. Because I've listened to Nigerian men and they say, oh, it's her mouth that caused it. Her mouth could never have caused it. There's no justification, by the way. So, for domestic violence. You know that's my position all the time.
Yes, I know. Well, and there's this thing about this bride price. You know, men are always like, oh, after all, I paid her bride price.
I call for the abolition of the bride price. I know it was not well received by many people, especially my people from the eastern part of Nigeria. So I said, okay, I'm going to come to a middle ground. I'm going to ask for regulation of the bride price. The bride price system is horrible.
Don't you think that's like tampering with our culture? You know, they say people without culture are people without identity.
What about killing of twins? Why did we tamper with that? We tampered with that. Yeah. And then there was a culture also in my place. A woman in her menstrual period cannot enter a house, certain houses. Of course, we have dispensed with that. So we got to be careful about what we call culture. Culture is not any specific particular practice. Culture is the totality of how a people live. So if we live in a modern environment where we travel by vehicles and no longer on foot, where we cultivate our farms by trucks, it would be ridiculous to apply the culture we use for the hoe for the tractors. So culture is the complete package of a way of life. So if we can use Facebook and the internet and the phones and communicate, I don't think our culture told us to use Samsung. I don't think our culture told us about Apple phones. Yeah. So if we're able to adapt to Apple phones, we must also adapt to all other areas where responsibility is called for. But,
including the abolition of the bride price.
Yeah, you know what, I know it's going to shock a lot of people when I talk about abolition of bride price, but if you look seriously at it today, what does it mean?
Exactly.
Nothing. It just is, it only comes in when a man wants to maltreat his wife. He says, hey, I bought you, I paid bride price for you. That's really that's the moment. But in the real sense of it, this is what happens in a typical marriage in Nigeria today. A young man meets a young woman, they go to the village, carry wine back and forth, eat, have party back and forth, says traditional wedding, and the bride price paid. But naturally, they don't just stay there. They end up in the church as well.
Okay.
So what is going on? Is the church part of your culture or what? Then you move from the church, then you end up in the registry under the Matrimonial Causes Act.
Yeah.
Okay, the Marriage Act, sorry. So now, what are you going to do there? Is that part of your culture? So you see, this whole thing is so muddled up. We need to structure it and harmonize the process of marriage in Nigeria. If you think of bride price, whatever it is, one thing I want to do is, it should not be refundable.
Okay.
It shouldn't be refundable at all. Because what they do, they use the refunding of the bride price as an instrument of oppression. So that's why when a woman divorces her husband and makes to repay the bride price, the husband refuses to take the bride price, knowing that until the bride price is repaid, the woman remains his wife. Some kind of funny idea. So he just keeps postponing the moment. So the lady comes, they say, oh, wait for Christmas when everybody will come home, all our kinsmen will be there. Then you know it's not one person's thing. The girl's father goes home. Christmas they came, they say, oh yes, everybody's here, but the man himself is not in town. And you know we can't do this in his absence. So come during the Easter. Then Easter comes up, some excuses I give it. This woman, in the meantime, is not being allowed to move on with her life.
Exactly.
She has suitors coming in to marry her, but those suitors cannot advance until bride price is repaid. So that is absolute nonsense. Yeah. There should be no refundable bride price. You pay bride price, whatever you call it, fine. Exactly. When the woman goes, but now this is what I do. This is what I do. And this is my innovation. This is my innovation. I can say this boldly that I am the one that first introduced this.
Okay.
I said, if I am filing a divorce petition in Nigerian High Court, one of the remedies I ask for is for the court to order the man to take his bride price back. So that's one of the things I'm going to ask the court in the paper. So the court will now say, Mr. X, and so the marriage between Mr. X and Mrs. X is now hereby dissolved.
Yes.
Then the court will go and say, and Mr. X is now ordered to take his bride price within the next three weeks.
Yeah.
So you know what happens? So when they come to repay the bride price and you don't take it, we go to court for contempt of court.
Oh, goodness.
So they can arrest you. So you don't use it to harass anybody. So this sort of thing.
All right. I mean, if we continue on this topic, we'll spend all day. So let's just move on.